Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
This is program 175, Survive and Thrive. When we face life's toughest challenges, change is forced upon us. Today, we talk with Zak Clayton, founder of Clayton Consulting, and Zak connects people in need with local merchants and a caring community. He's built a fundraising program that's a win-win-win. We just keep doing what we're doing, and we help because this process happens in the background. Zak, you have faced one of the greatest challenges that any human being can face in their life, being broken, waiting at the side of the road. What were the types of things that you thought about when everything stopped instantaneously?
Well, I was the prototypical motorcycle guy, and the first thing I thought of, when I woke up was, well, how bad is my motorcycle? And then, of course, the second thing I thought of was, how soon am I going to be able to return to work? Because, I knew I actually, when one of the first things I said was, okay, well, somebody better call in for me because I can work today. And they said, well, you haven't made it to work for the last 3 days. And I'm like, oh, well, that ain't good. The first, and then I started thinking about, well, what happens if this is permanent? I don't know what's going on. The headaches are weird. It was so scrambled due to the head injury that, I didn't really know what to think about it. It was an odd situation, and it was a scary situation. So I didn't really even start thinking about how this was going to be a permanent thing until I started seeing the doctors much later. And then when I found out I was deaf in my right ear, I knew that would probably end my career as a truck driver. So, and that's when I started thinking about what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then when the headaches continued to be severe and the cognitive endurance was down, I knew I had to find something to do with my life. And that's when I created this program.
It sounds like you didn't know how severe it was at the time. And then as it became clear, as you were healing, then you were talking about headaches, and that has come up a couple of times already. So these headaches, that impedes how we do us every single day. Did that affect your outlook on life, your mindset? And if so, how? And then what did you do about it?
Yeah, it really did, because it makes things, like you said, it really affects who you are. I'm a guy who went from working, 60 hours a week on the clock with an additional 20 hours a week off the clock to make the 60 hours possible, be able to get work done. A workaholic basically is what it is. And so there's a lot of times that I still attempt to perform at that level, and then my body reminds me, you cannot do this. You're trying to do things that that the head's just not ready to allow you to do anymore. And so what I do is I have to try to work around my abilities now, and it makes it. I test the boundaries quite a bit. But then it reminds me, it's a slap in the face. It reminds me, no, you're not going to push yourself that hard. What I have to do is I have to learn, and I've been trying different things to learn my boundaries. And so that is definitely one of the things that I've had to learn is boundaries. I also try to, I do try to split things up now as things have been progressing, because I do know that I have limits. So, and I try not to push it too far, but
it's human nature. How far can we go, and then go a little bit further? Especially if I say human nature, let's qualify that and add humans that are driven.
Right. Yeah.
humans
yeah.
that have created habits of that. And those could be mutually exclusive. They could be totally independent of each other.
That's one of the reasons why I created this. I am no good at sitting still. I'm not good at sitting around, and it could have went two ways. It could have went, I'm going to sit around the house and complain and moan and complain about it all day long, or I could get out and try to help people sit around the house and moan and complain. But at least there's that concept of getting out, trying to do something with what I've.
Okay, so we're going to pause right here, and I want you to tell us, what is this that you are working on these days?
What I'm doing is just trying to help people in emergency situations. There's a lot of people that at times, like my accident happened August 16th of 2014. I hate using the term accident, but that's, it's the best explanation of it, I guess. But what I do is, or what I discovered real quick is there are a lot of programs out there who want to help people, but due to their restrictions, their financial restrictions, a lot of times they cannot do anything. And so what the program that I've created, we can take and we work with local merchants and not local merchants. I'm not afraid of anybody, whoever wants to do it. But what we try to do is we do a driven marketing program to where we drive people through the door with intent on helping somebody else. When they purchase something, they turn that around and they give, say, you go out to eat somewhere, we'll say G5 or in Severance or the Windjammer or Carter Lake. You go to those places and they'll turn around and they'll give 10% of your total bill to somebody in the community who needs help, whether that is a nonprofit or it's a family in need or a sick child or something like that. They take and they give 10% of your total bill to somebody who needs assistance. And this is this is a program that doesn't stop. You can do this any time of day, any time of the year, which is much better than just doing an event for somebody, a one-time event. Because the one-time event, you're always going to hear that I'm sorry, I can't make it on that night, I got to work. This eliminates that issue, because this is whenever they can afford, whenever they can do it, whenever they can afford to do it.
So there are places that we patron that have agreed to give something on behalf of their patrons to pay it forward.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And I chose to do this because there are so many smaller companies in this area that I know of that will give until it hurts. They can barely keep their own doors open. And these companies, I got 3 companies that are for sale right now that are still going to give back because they understand what it's like for people to need help. The Beaver's Den Leather is one of them, and she just gives and gives and gives, and yet she's still willing to give 10% to everybody who goes in and purchases something. She's willing to give 10% to a family who needs help.
Okay, thank you for telling us about that program, because we all do want to pay it forward, and our ability to give time is limited, which means our ability to know what is out there that just by doing what we normally do can help another is something that is really important. And it's an interesting circle. And I'm curious because this had to have come up in some capacity, not only because of the fact that you were required to find something new to do, also because part of the healing process is to understand that people don't expect to go through this.
Right. It was definitely something that, I always tell people that I used to think I had headaches, and now I know that I used to have an irritant, and, because the headaches are so much different. And so, yeah, you're right. It made life a lot different. It's made it to where I understand, how much, how important it is to have somebody to stand behind you, and having companies stand behind you, and having the public being able to stand there and support your cause or you as a person I think is really important. It's also uplifting to the person who's getting help, because one of the worst things people can do, and I know how embarrassing it is to ask for help. I know that it's not, it's not a manly thing to do, but one of the worst things for people to do is wait until it's too late, because that is something that happens. You're in a desperate situation. You're in a situation where you need help. If you ask for help right there, then that'll stop a lot of damage, because if you wait for too long, you're so far under that, it's just impossible to do. So, this is also this is also a system where, you can go on ahead and say, hey, you know what, while you're out getting an oil change, can you go on ahead and just put my name on the receipt? And that way we'll get $10 from Phil's Pro Auto here in Greeley. It'll, it's just a way that you can simply get little pieces. It's not going to be enough to change your life forever. Nobody's going to become a millionaire off this program, but people are going to, $5 is the difference between having cereal and milk for your child to eat and not. And so this is a great program for that.
Yes. And it really is in the little things and the actions that we take and the choices that we make every day. And it makes me think about more about the healing process, because I'm thinking now on a slightly larger scale in terms of just our business relationships, our sales relationships, our vendors, our employees, whatever relationships we're facing, we all have baggage.
Yeah.
And so was there something that became clear about your baggage that you had to let go of that changed your views about how you do relationships?
I had to let go of the fact that I was no longer, able to put in the time and the effort and my love of work. I was no longer able to take and be the man that I used to be. I'm going to work until I can no longer work. Being a federal employee, I was limited on having a federal driver's license. I was not able to, I was under restrictions on how much I could work. And I would push the limits of that every day, or every week. I had it to where, I would start working on Monday morning, and by noon on Friday, I was at 70 hours.
How did this 70-hour work week and then riding your motorcycle with your friends and the partying harder, are there pieces of that your sons picked up that maybe you're like, now in the state that you are now versus the past Zak to the current Zak? Are there things you're like, oh, I didn't know I really did that. I didn't know I was modeling that.
Right. The one good thing is that my sons never picked up on the party or harder thing. Both of my sons, thank God, they're driven enough to where they don't do some of that stuff. You were talking about baggage. That's one of the things that, I did have, is that, I wasn't a model citizen at that point in time. While I was still doing a lot of fundraising with that partying, it's still something that, probably not the best way to do it. I do now get to spend more time with my sons, which is nice, which is wonderful. Because during the week, if they had something that was going on at school, later in the evening, I couldn't do it because I was going to work at 3 a.m.
Right.
So, I missed a lot of that. And then, the weekends, the kids always did their own thing. And so, video games and stuff like that, stuff I didn't really want to be around for anyway.
Sure. So. I totally understand that. Plus, I also understand those, that swing shift, that overnight shift, things like that happen. That was part of my household growing up also. And it can be tough and it changes things. And it sounds like that you have made the best of those situations and you were there for the key pieces and passing on positive traits. Tell me 1 or 2 positive traits that that you see in your young adult sons today.
They're both very, when it comes to a task, they're both very driven to complete the task. And that's definitely something that I am, not was, but they're gonna fight through the discouragement. They're gonna fight through the issues, and they're going to complete their task. And that was definitely the way I was. I didn't have to go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it was easier for me to complete my task if I was able to get out on the streets before everybody else was on the streets. So, because I drove a truck with a crane on it, and trying to move that around when you had, little people who love to come and see the giant monster machine, pick up a garbage can. It's a lot easier doing that when there's no kids around, rather than worrying about that falling on it, somebody. So, and because it wasn't just little kids, it was the bigger kids.
I'm an adult kid. I gawk at all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, the first time I saw it, I was enthralled. I was like, yeah, that is so neat. And I pushed the guy out of the way, and I'm like doing the controls myself. First 10 minutes of training, I'm doing this on my own, and the guy's going like, well, you've definitely used a crane before. And I'm like, yes, I have, so, but, you're swinging a 3-ton can over somebody's head, over people, and they're trying to walk underneath it. And you're like, what are you doing? So, but, like I said, it was just kind of one of those things that I made my own schedule, and I pushed for my own schedule because it worked better for me. And both of my sons, I do see that in them. They create their time, they create their schedule, and they make it to where it's easier for them to complete a task.
You're listening to the voice of Bold Business Radio. In every program, we share stories, tips, and concepts that benefit short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. Stay current and receive programs to continue sparking ideas about growth strategy by subscribing to the program at voiceofboldbusiness.com. Now, back to Jess.
I was having a conversation the other day with a prospective client, and they said, Jess, I'm not quite sure I should be telling you this because everybody throws this phrase around, and I don't know what it means. And of course, you know me, I said, bring it, let's talk about it. And it turns out they wanted to know what a business advisor is. Now, a business advisor is almost like saying baseball team, because within a baseball team, there are different positions and different rules and different roles that everybody comes together to function in and to create a team that can go out and be competitive. So from the business advisor side, that's also the case. And in the case of what we do at Red Direction, a business advisor is something that not only can allow an exchange of experience. Oh, I've been there before. Oh, here's a really good resource. Oh, I know somebody that would be good for you to know. It's also thinking through problems together. The way we think through problems is where our limits occur. Thinking through problems help us find the leaky pipes. Thinking through problems help us prioritize and stay in line with our growth strategy. So sometimes we end up thinking, even though we're gathering data and information from all different types of people and different venues to get data from reports or online or surveys or whatever capacity we have around us, we still must start thinking about making decisions. And when we're making a decision by ourselves, after all that information is collected from a diverse set of sources, we can still find ourselves in a vacuum. And so who is on your team to help you work through and, more importantly, think through the problem to make the best decision for the company right now? Well, that would be a business advisor. And the longer the relationship is with a business advisor, at least in the role that Red Direction plays, the more the team knows your company, which means the more we are able to help you because we're building on past experience. Oh, that sounds familiar. That's like what we do in the show. So anyway, that's the short answer of what is a business advisor in the capacity with which Red Direction works. You're listening to program 175, Survive and Thrive. I'm talking with Zak Clayton, motorcycle accident survivor and business owner. Here's what we've been talking about so far. We have thrown in a bunch about change, a bunch about relationships. We have seen a glimpse of what it takes to actually be present. And that's one thing I'm recognizing from Zak so far, is that he's really present and thoughtful about before accident and after accident, part one. Part two of that, he's incredibly thoughtful about what he's doing now and keeping that vision first foremost, front and center, and taking whatever action is most important at that time to continue to move his idea, his project, his business forward. And that makes me think, about challenges, because we all face challenges. I mean, not to make light of any situation, but there are days I wake up and I go, are you kidding me? I forgot to buy toothpaste when I went to the grocery store. And now what, so now what do? Got to use baking soda. Oh, that's so gross. Okay. So there's that kind of problem that we face, those pebbles in our shoes. But at the same point in time, that same thing, there's something drastic could happen. We go to work and we hear somebody was in an accident on the way in this morning. We come to work on a Thursday and we find out that somebody has been diagnosed with a big health issue earlier in that week, and it's just now hitting our desk. We look at our families and we may or may not realize what is going on in their life because we're moving so fast that we're like the last to know, or at least feels like that at that point in time. And so we're talking about challenge and facing challenge. And so, Zak, another question for you is when faced with a challenge, no matter how big, which you have experienced, no matter how small, which we experience every day, all of us, what's the first step that you take to address the challenge?
Realize that there's that challenge. And one great example of that is still fresh in my mind because it was just 2 days ago. And I woke up and I knew I wasn't cognitive right. I knew that I knew I didn't have all my faculties, but I wanted to get a couple things done. And so I went out and I went to go do some laundry and talk to the people at the laundromat about helping me launder some clothes that have been donated that we can give to people who need emergency help. Well, one of the things that I did, and I don't remember doing it, is I ended up losing the cord to my laptop. And so now my laptop is useless to me because the battery's dead. But what I realized that day was when I got home, I realized that there wasn't, it was just not a day that was going to be productive. And if I didn't lay down the problem, I was going to have to, it was going to be something that was going to carry on. And so I didn't want that to happen. So I shut myself down and did a lot of sleeping that day. Woke up the next day and I felt great and was able to get some more done. And,
So you listened to yourself.
Yeah, I did.
You listened to the cues that your body and your surroundings were giving you.
Which is exactly what we were talking about earlier, because when this accident first happened, I wouldn't have listened to myself. I would have continued to go, and I would have been down for 3 or 4 days. Yeah. So it is something that I finally learned that, when it gets like that, don't fight it. You can be as angry as you want, in which I do. I get very angry at myself. I keep telling people that I work for the worst boss I've ever worked for now, because this guy understands what I'm going through, but he doesn't care. He still wants the stuff done. So, I work for the worst tyrant I've ever worked for now, and that being myself. But it's something that, you do have to learn sometimes that, it's not worth fighting a losing cause a lot of times, okay? There's always a second way that you can go about doing things. And even if you have to go on ahead and shut down a little bit, it's well worth it, because going at something when you've got the energy is a lot smarter than going at something when you're fighting yourself along with fighting the problem. So, something I told somebody the other day is that you can't make decisions when you're emotional, because you're either going to make a decision where you think everything is, if you make a decision when you're the happiest in the world, you're going to make a decision thinking that everything's always going to be like that. And we all know it's not always going to be, bubblegum and rainbows. And if you make a decision when you're fighting the world and everything is terrible, and then you're going to make a decision that's going to harm you. And so, it's not worth fighting. Or it's not worth making a decision when you're emotional. It's not worth fighting through something where you're not going to win. And you just need to listen to what you've got.
Interesting. My brain is going in a lot of different ways because, I really enjoyed your example specifically because we live in a society where listening and stopping because our brains just aren't working that day. Listening and stopping because we're just a little under the weather. Listening and stopping because we're distracted by something else. And actually giving ourselves the space to be with the distraction instead of with what we presume, the story we tell ourselves of what is important. So that really sits with me in a really strong way. And it made me think of a story. And I'm going to change the name of this person to protect
Yeah.
their identity, right? We want to keep them safe. I remember when I was faced with a challenge of recognizing I don't think my business partner is going to is the right business partner for this business. And having to take a step back and really evaluate and recognize that I had avoided this for a very long time. I chalked it up to things that I was doing. I chalked it up to misunderstanding. I chalked it up to all kinds of things. And, we're going to call this person Parker. Parker turned out we just weren't going to fit. Everything that we wanted to do, everything that we believed in aligned at the surface only. When you pull back the layers and you get to, so we think we're aligned, yet how are we going to work together? And it was so different and so polarized and polarized. Everything was a battle. Everything was a fight. Everything had bazillions of other things. So it was moving like molasses. I remember when I woke up and I realized this isn't going to work. Now what do I do? And recognizing I had to take a couple days off. I had to go sit with this and be like, I am, now that I know this, I can't go to work and face this person. Can't go say, "Hi, Parker, how's it going?" It would be one of those things where there's something going on and nobody's going to tell you because you're moving so fast that I don't have a poker face. My emotions are on my sleeve. So I was like, I got to stop, get my emotions in check because they're going to be there, but I don't need them to be a telltale sign. I don't need them to lead into this. I don't need any of that to make this harder than it actually is, because it's hard. It's hard to make a change like that and to feel like somebody that somebody that you trusted had turned out to be somebody you don't know and betrayed that trust is really hard. And so space is important. That's really what I want to take away at this moment. Space is important. And we don't take enough of it because we're always looking for the next sale. We're always looking for the next sponsor. We're always looking for what's next. We know once we accomplish something, there's 10 more things waiting for us. And we'll see what the priority is once we accomplish this one thing. But we know there's no time to waste. And that's kind of crazy to think about, that we live in a culture like that. There's no time to waste. I mean, there's no time to waste. Anyway, I could go on and on. I feel like I just jumped on a soapbox. So I'm going to step down and I'm going to say, tell me what's on your mind, because I see you thinking and wanting to share something.
Well, what's on my mind right now is what you and I, we discussed this a long time ago when I first heard you talk. Yeah. You had mentioned this story and it clicked in my head because I went through an identical situation. Less than 3 months after my accident, I was determined that, you know what, I know the hardships my family are going after. I know what I want to do. Let's get this done. I brought in somebody, and when I did that and we started to create a nonprofit, everything was going good. I knew what I wanted. And then all of a sudden what I wanted wasn't there anymore. And I remember how it almost destroyed me as a person. And so I learned from that real quick. And like you said, it took a while for me. And I was sitting back doing the woe is me thing. And I'm like, how did this happen? Is this what the business world is like? There's no way my emotions and my body can take this again. Do I really want to continue this? is it, the biggest question was, is it worth it? And I'm going to tell you something. It really affected me quite negatively, and it took a long time for me to bounce back. Ironically, yesterday I got a call from the president of that organization again, wanting to know the true story behind the organization.
Ooh.
And it really opened up my heart. It opened me up into where, as soon as I hung up the video conference with her, I had a tear in my eye, because it was great to know that somebody was finally wanting to know the truth of it again. And it lifted my spirit so much yesterday that, I could have ran into another wall yesterday and I would have been okay. Because I was once again in a positive place, with that program. And I knew that once again, it was going to come back around to a little more of what the vision was originally for it. And now I can actually talk to them again. And we talked about them jumping on board, one of the benefits that I've got going right now as a sponsor. And it opened, it opened my heart to letting them back in my life again, and that was something I never thought was going to happen. So, it's always a situation where I suggest you never shut down any relationship completely, because problems are going to work themselves out. People are going to see through, stuff, and people are going to come back around going, this isn't exactly how this was supposed to go, is it? And when they came back to me and she asked what my vision was, she was like going, wow, and so it really made me happy yesterday. But you sharing that story with me, I'm going to tell you something. That when you shared that story with me originally, once again, I was like, it opened up a release in my head that just drained a lot of stress that I was having, because I didn't know other people went through that.
Right.
Deep down inside, other people go through that, but until you hear somebody with the emotion that you put into it,
there's that, well, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, how come this is affecting me like it is? Why am I letting this drag my life down so much? Why is this such an issue with me? You know that other people have gone through it, but until you hear somebody say it, you don't understand. And I didn't understand until you told me that story, and I was like, and it did. It was just like, it was just like the balloon, air coming out of a balloon. The pressure in my head just went away, and I was so thankful that you expressed that you told me that story, and I loved your speech, and the speech that I listened to you. I loved it, and it was geared towards women, and that was the funny thing. But it still helped me out immensely. So the whole.
That one was not supposed to be geared towards women, so that's really good feedback to have. It was that's for everybody audience.
But you did it. But you opened it up with "I'm Wonder Woman," and
that's true. I did.
Yeah. You sure did. And
that's
I was
exactly
like,
right.
So my first thought of when you start to rip off the shirt and everything is like going, what kind of meeting am I at here? I'm going to like this meeting. But but then when you started talking about, like I said, I found you to be extremely excited. I loved that event all around.
It was a good event.
There were a couple things said at that meeting that just broke into my heart, and it was such a great meeting, and I'll never forget some of the stuff that was said in that meeting.
Which is perfect. Well, so when your heart, when things like go straight to your heart, ooh, I'm supposed to receive that right now. And looking back at the challenges, whether you had that insight or not, how has it changed the way that you approach business today?
I'm a lot better with, I don't want to see rejection, because I'm still not good with rejection, but I'm better equipped to come at challenges. I don't see a challenge as a wall anymore. I see a challenge as, as one of those really flexible roadblock things that you can always find a way around them. You just have to find the way around them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot better than I used to be, because I'd hit a challenge and I'd be like going, well, great, there it is. I'm done. Can't do nothing about it. It's done and over with,
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go through the heartbreak. But now I know that, there's a way around this. Kick back, sit back, have a soda, watch a hockey game, think about it, and come at it fresh. And so I'm able to do that now, and I'm definitely able to look through things a little bit different.
I'm gonna stick with I want to know a story. I want you to tell me a story sometime during your healing process that and it could be a business story, it could be whatever, right? Something where you were going through it and you actually hit the proverbial wall. I can't go any further. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to go forward. The who and the what. Who was there to help you through it, and what actually the inner strength? Did you have inner strength? Did it come from outside of you to help shift that mindset and decide, yes, I don't have a wall here, I'm going to take the next step. Yes, I don't have a wall here, I'm going to take the next step.
There's a lot of times, and I definitely don't want to do this as a woe is me moment, but there's a lot of times when
we won't take it that way because I asked the question.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that financially, I run this company right now on my disability, and that is a giant cup. I'm just going to say that is either a giant cup or you've got a very small head, one of the two. So, but there's a lot of times when it comes to me running this under my disability that I go, I just can't do this anymore. I just, I cannot do this anymore. And am I really doing, what I intended to do? Am I really helping people? And it's not one person. It's a lot of people who come up saying, you can't stop. You're so close. This is the idea that you're working on can change so many lives. You just have to keep fighting through this. And, the example is, right now is that, yeah, my hose is kinked, but I'm getting closer to finding out where that kink is and opening it up. And when it comes, it's not going to stop. It's going to open up, and the potential is there. And I know it's there. And I just have to, depend on my friends just for their support. And that's really what it is, having people stand beside me and having my little brother who runs Rapid Router Service, who's one of my partners, have him come up to me and say, you know what? There's nothing that makes me happier to wear your shirt and let people know I am fully behind this system. We are going to make a difference. And when he talks about this program as we and not your, and that's something that really, once again, it gives me that boost of energy where I'm able to sit there and go, yeah, this is going to, my personal life, yeah, this is going to take a little bit of bump out of it, but this is worth it because it's going to be worth it. This is something important. This is going to help many, many people. And in the end, I'm going to make, I'm going to be better because of this, and fundraising is something I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed helping people. I put together my first ever fundraiser when I was 16 years old because I had two friends who were in a motorcycle accident, and the cops came to our door and knocked on our door. I answered the door. And of course, when you see police officers and you're a little juvenile delinquent like I was, I answered the door and I'm like going, oh no, this is like the truancy officers coming after me because I ditched all day today. And they asked for my father, and my dad came to the door, and they told him that your son Zachary was in a hospital and he's been in a serious accident. And of course, I'm standing in the corner going, no, I wasn't. And I looked at the officer and I'm like, no, I'm right here. And it's like, well, do you have another son? And I looked at my two younger brothers and I'm like, well, I hope not. If he does, Dad has a lot of explaining to do. And then I realized that it was my two friends that were in that accident, and I was able to take in and tell them what was going on. But then, of course, being 16-year-old, I also had the emotions like, what did I do? How did me getting off the back of that bike, how did that ruin two people's lives? That was the first thing I was thinking of as a kid. And so, I immediately started wanting to put together something to help their family, to help the recovery, to help all the friends that we had battle through this. And so I put together my first ever fundraiser at the American Legion when I was 16 years old. And, after that, I started in my adult life, I started working at the Old Town Tavern here in Greeley. And, you know, that was a big, rough and tough biker bar at that time. And I'm going in a fresh, skinny little kid, you know. That's right. At one point in time, I was skinny. But you know, I walked into this place and we started raising money for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And I realized how much fun that can be. And now I've been doing that for 27 years. You know, I mean, so it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. Poker runs on a motorcycle. You know, you always see a group of guys and gals dressed in black leather going out there and making noise, and you're like, oh God, what's going on now? You know, people don't realize these guys are probably raising money for something, whether it's a sick child, a sick adult. The honor flight of Northern Colorado, which sadly is no longer. But you know, it was always for a good cause. And yeah, we're out there to make noise and look tough and stuff like, but we're also out there to raise good money. So, you know, my one plea for people is please be patient with, you know, because when you see these long lines of bikers, they're not out there just to raise trouble. They're out there for a good cause. So there's so many times that, you know, I have thought about giving up because of finances, and because, you know, it's hard to do this as one person. But when you have the support, the good support of great people, you know, it makes it a little bit tolerable.
So we have time for one more question. The last question that I ask everybody: what makes it bold? And in your case, my question is, what makes it bold to face challenge, to do more than survive, to actually thrive?
Help the community out of the crisis we're in. Wanting to let people know that there's people out there that need help, and wanting to let people know that you can help by just shopping, and wanting people to get back to a point where we can, yeah, his opinion's a little bit different than mine, but that doesn't make him a frog. Oh, he's a Democrat, I don't want to talk to him. You know, he's a damn Democrat. Why do I care? No, he's still a human being. We're all humans. And that's what makes this bold, is that this plan is so, you know, it's so complicated in the point where, you know, we're trying to help the community. We're trying to help people who need help. We're also trying to help the businesses to where they can get busy again. You know, we're trying to further the economy because we're trying to help people out. If you have people helping other people, they're not being a drain off society. You know, it's just one of those things. This is all encompassed. This is a huge program. When it can be a huge program, it will be a huge program. And, you know, I mean, this is just a better way to try to help people. And it's also a way to try to get the community back to the way it used to be. Because we used to be able to sit there and, you know, I remember my grandfather having, you know, coffee with his neighbors on their porch, you know, and the neighbor, you know, would come over and sit down, and they would have a party at the park or something behind, and it was always a community, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody was you know, not always happy with everybody, but it's something that's dearly missed, you know, because you can't go and just hang out with people anymore, because somebody's always going to say something that's going to trigger an argument. We need to get away from that. We need to remember that people are people, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what their religion, their thoughts, they're still human beings. You know, I mean, we're all just trying to make a little bit of our lives happy and tolerable for ourselves. So, you know, my bold is just trying to get in people's face and say, hey, stop it. You know, be nice to each other once in a while. You can do that. So, you know, and it's easy to do. And I just, you know, and this is also just a way that we can get to know so many great programs in the community. You know, Free Our Girls was one that I never knew anything about. I never knew that the trafficking problem was what it is until I met Megan with Free Our Girls. And she's opened my eyes, and she's opened my heart to what she does. You know, she's a survivor, and watching her come at people and talk to people about what she's done and what she's doing, it's fantastic. And it's energetic, and it's a great, you know, it makes things great. And it's just, there's a way to make this community thrive again. And, there's a way to make the community happy again. And we just have to try.
You are in the right place for conversations about current needs we as business leaders face regarding technology, customer expectations, and quickly changing markets. This program is about what it means to reach short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. You will find all of the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P175. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 175. You may also search the site for Survive and Thrive. Keep this conversation going by telling us what you think. Rate this program on iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this program at. That is your preferred listening platform. We want to hear from you there. It's because of your contributions, our guests' contributions, and our team's contributions that we get to learn from each other. We're adding dimension to our learning, not only what we experience personally, but what we may learn and glean from conversations with others. Let's apply Zak's takeaways for our own practical application. When we face change, it is possible to survive and thrive.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.